seconds. And you're live.
Well, good day, everybody. I hope you had a good week. For those that were on with us last week, and we've got a couple of special guests here today with us. This afternoon it is here in San Diego with Alev Kauta and Nana Fahavesi. They will be able to make sure that you guys have a pretty good understanding coming away from how we try to play, at least our fundamental aspects of play when we go out into that pitch. So, welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Brownie.
Thank you.
All right, sweet. So I'm just going to share my screen. All right, here we go. So look, as we said last week, we'll be touching on a bit of the aspects of play and how we go about what we try to do out there on the pitch. And so let's just jump straight into it. What we want to do today is, if you do have questions, try and get them through as quickly as possible so that we can answer them when we're actually on that topic. As we look here, the three areas that we're going to touch on is our playing identity, which of course our values, our culture, etc., plays a big part of, but we'll jump a bit more into the physical and the rugby specific elements today. And then ultimately what we aspire to be, and then we'll jump into the attack DNA and the defence DNA. The lenses that we look through, our foundation frameworks and the different strategies that we employ, and then also how we kind of measure our success and how we're progressing from a key performance indicator standpoint. So if you come away from today, hopefully you have a very clear understanding of how to beat us. So here we go. All right, so ladies, they're going to jump in here a little bit more on the so-called three, and I've adapted this slightly because we will be looking to refine and really make sure that this is us as we continue to progress forward. And of course, as the team progresses and develops, your playing identity definitely can expand or be refined, etc. And but if we do look at this from a points of difference standpoint, which allows us ultimately to play the style of play that we want to play. We are blessed with a number of quality, all our players are very athletic, but if you look at our comparison against the teams that we're playing across the world, it's definitely one of our points of difference that makes us special as a unit and brings a lot of strength to the group. We've prioritised a lot of time on the culture, which I'll let the girls go into a bit more, and you heard a lot about this in week one. I want us to touch on ultimately how we optimize a high performance training environment to maximize growth and development, what our team looks like, and then how vital it is that the staff are aligned to ensure that the messaging is clear and we're all going in the same direction. So ladies, if you guys want to jump in on the culture and the diversity side of things of our group, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think we can start with, we spent a lot of time redefining this, our culture in an acronym called BRAVE. And we can go through kind of what that stands for. And then, Nana, if we just go back and forth. But the B stands for be a good blueberry, basically just be a good person. And I think the idea is that you're in control of your attitude. And so when you show up, just hoping to continue to grow as a human and also just be a good person.
And then R is basically is respect for yourself, for your teammates on the pitch and off the pitch. And that's from top to bottom or left to right, since we're equal as a team, from the staff to the players.
And I mean, this obviously ties into the environment side of things, the us being intentional in what we're trying to create there, so that we can really push and challenge each other as much as possible. Sorry, keep going. We did touch on this in week 1 and 2. So
you did. Okay.
Yeah. But I think if you look at it in the sense of from a value standpoint but more so in the sense of brave and being comfortable, being uncomfortable. What Nana referred to, courageous and kind of upholding the cultural side of things and what we want to stand for and how we support and respect each other. And I love what she said about how ultimately not one person in our environment, from so-called top to bottom hierarchy, etc., is more important than the other. As human beings, the qualities and the value that each individual brings to a team is essential. And that's definitely one of the aspects that we have started to try and really emphasize over this last couple of years is the importance and the respect for the individual before we even talk about rugby, you know. Sorry, interrupt me.
No, we can V is being vulnerable, and then I think the A is authentic, and then the V is just being vulnerable, and the E is enjoying the process. So I think you guys touched on that a lot, but yeah, like being united and being bold in the face of adversity and fight not to fracture is what we would try to represent.
What have you experienced? I mean, from the vulnerable standpoint, what have you guys really? Because without the vulnerability, we don't get to know each other. So then suddenly the compassion or the empathy for each other, if we want to create a high safety, love, care environment, how have you found that? I mean, how's that process been for you guys? What the experience? Have you got some examples that you wanted to share?
Well, V's my favorite one.
I was just gonna say that. I think Nana was the first being like, "What? Why is this up there? Why do we have this?"
No, well, it was a learning curve for me, but being open to being vulnerable was a good thing. But the team, I guess I want to say I was the only one who kind of just seen it differently or was raised seeing it differently. But through the team, I've learned that being able to be vulnerable is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength personally for yourself, and then it also helps your team grow comfortable for you, and it helps you each other be more honest once you're open to being vulnerable with each other.
Absolutely. I think it's helped tremendously in us growing together and helping like us be authentic in ourselves and being individuals. Like you can still be vulnerable and have your own autonomy and bring what you bring to the team. So for example, we just did a player portrait of our like best experiences, our most memorable experiences, like highs and lows in our playing career. And we had to share it. It was a big portrait we drew of our experiences. And so some people had some windy roadmaps and others had just random pictures or self-portrait. And we had to share that with the team. And then at the end of it was like, do you matter? And do you feel like you matter? And I think that question, a lot of people had questions about that question. Like, what do you mean, do we matter? Like, how are we going to share that? What's the purpose of this? And, you know, we go into so much, like mental conditioning of like, your feelings don't matter. Like, this is acknowledge it, move on, and you know, do these things. And so this idea of like feeling how we're feeling and drawing that and sharing those emotions was something that definitely brought us together and was eye-opening too. Like some people, I think when they're not playing or they're injured, you know, the purpose is kind of lost. And so how can we combat that, come together and make sure everyone feels like a part of this program and team, even if they're not playing?
Do you feel on that particular point, from you both of you have been in the program for over 6-7 years, is it safe to say that the value or the safety of our environment, or that because of the vulnerability, is definitely increasing how we see each other as individuals and peers?
I do. Well, I mean, I'm sure Lev does too, but with that one assignment we had to do, was good because you get people who are injured and then people who aren't, but you guys are kind of on the same, you guys have the same feelings around the same time. So it was nice to see everyone be vulnerable and tell their experience through the past years and kind of align it to how we're pretty similar, regardless of like whether you're playing or not, injured or not.
Yeah. I think we've created, we spent a lot of time. It didn't just happen overnight. being like, even just building the BRAVE acronym, like we spent Wednesday after Wednesday after Wednesday, week after week, just diving into what makes us tick, what's our legacy, like what do we want to do. And so Brownie, I think, yeah, like you guys have, especially the high performance and like staff has helped create an environment where we are not just numbers and we're not just stats, but we're humans and trying to grow. So that like is extremely helpful in wanting, and like us, encouraging us and empowering us to be vulnerable and to be authentic and to bring, you know, those feelings and those conversations to you, and you having an open door and us being able to like express ourselves how we do is like extremely helpful. But yeah, so I think that creating that transparency and that like confidence that we can say what we want to say and it be the cared for has been awesome.
Thank you, ladies. It's really cool to hear. And why I suppose I'm emphasising this and our playing identity before we even get into the rugby so-called detail, is because we have prioritised it so much, because we know that without this and the level of growth and because the level in which we're willing to dare, or as coaches or as athletes, and really stretch ourselves, is going to be limited by how safe, you know, how willing are we to look potentially silly, or to be vulnerable and expose ourselves in some ways, and so that's been a huge priority for us. And when it says high SLC, or safety, love, care, to optimize an environment, you've got to get the balance right if we're in a high performance setting where you have high execution standards, or standards of execution, and but you can't, one without the other will either lead to a pretty average harsh showing where with a lot of fear, and the other one with a lot of complacency and lack of follow through in many ways. So it's one of the things that we deem that's you know, it's one of our points of difference. As we said, the diversity with regards to the amount of players that we have from across the country, from different settings, not just ethnic or race backgrounds, but you know, schooling to finances, religions. You know, there's a lot of diversity in our group, and especially from our sports psychologist the other day, is how he truly believes one of our greatest strengths is that we represent America better than most other sports do in the American landscape, and I think that's a real blessing. And we're, because of the vulnerability or the increase and the priority of getting to know each other and having empathy with each other, I think that the diversity is really becoming a super strength for us. But anyway, on pitch, ultimately trying to play as fast as we can and recognise the opportunities that we can exploit, and can we read how quickly can we recognise the opportunity or the picture that's being presented and exploit it, and are we adaptable are we adaptable to be able to recognise the optimal when these pictures are constantly changing so quickly. So jumping over to the next slide, defence, one of Nana's probably favourite elements of the game. Definitely both of these two are pretty dominant defenders. Do you, I mean, Alev, do you just want to run through kind of like our standard system or our standard approach?
Sure. Nana, you can jump in too. We play a 6-1. We have a box system, so we don't necessarily have, we go into 2 pillars sometimes, but we'll talk about that a little later. But we are trying to kill in 2 phases.
What do you mean by box system? What's a box system?
Oh, so we have someone that's behind. So we'll have a tackler, and then we have just 2 people involved in the breakdown, and someone that's tackling and someone that's directly behind them in a box. And if they want to hunt, and they see that they can, slow that ruck down, then they have free rights to go into that, cause chaos, and then that tackler will come to box. But it's really just 2 people, so we can stay matched. I apologize for those. So we can stay matched and have a great launch and kill on defense.
What do you mean by matched?
Nana, what does he mean by matched?
So with only
I've
having
put them under a little bit of pressure, you know, now. So these young ladies, it's a little bit of an examination.
No, it's all good.
matched as in you're just one-on-one, woman to woman, or man on man, whatever. But it's just so we're able to force the errors, the efforts, to force the errors.
And I think this comes down to, like, ultimately, maybe I should have put it around the other way with regards to our principles of play. You know, we have three key principles that we try to play through in our defensive system, which is connect, which ultimately what Nana and Aleva just referred to here about, yes, putting themselves in a strong position to be able to be in charge of what's happening in front of them, etc. Not allowing the attack to be on the front foot, but us to be on the front foot. But that connection part is huge to increase the comfort and the safety that we feel in many ways, so that we can be confident to go and execute, leading into the go-get, which is, again, more of an aggressive mindset and really going to make things happen on our terms versus waiting for it to happen, or you know, allowing the attack. And of course, the word attack kind of means, okay, yeah, it's your turn, but we want to do everything on that pitch where possible by being actually on the in the attacking mindset. So that's where that go-get part comes in. And then from a strike standpoint, it's when you're getting that opportunity. Alev's touched on the so-called around the breakdown. Obviously, the tackle happens or the contact point happens. And what's the options that are available to the tackler or that first arriving player, which we refer to as the hunter in our system. But that tackler and hunter create that box scenario that Aleva was sharing before. Nana, with regards to the two-phase sequence, can you give a little bit more insight into that with regards to what we're trying to achieve there?
So we try to, well, no one likes playing defense forever, so we try to two-phase sequence where we try to get the tackle, most likely first tackle, we like to force them to the outside, and then it's easier to be the match. And then that's when we would have better connection from the edge ruck to be able to go get.
Yeah, cool. What's it with regards to put shape here? So, Alev, sorry, first and foremost, where do we generally find that we get most of our turnovers from?
I would say an edge ruck.
And complementing what Nana just said there, it's if you think about this from this direction, it's like, okay, how generally the biggest spaces are on the outside. Quite often in the game of sevens, it's on the outside. So from an edge ruck, how many passes do you have generally to get it to the outside? It'll be four passes compared to if you're in the middle of the pitch, quite often it'll be one or two. So just having that understanding of, hey, cool, biggest space, it's a long way to get the ball there, and that's why our connection's key. But ultimately, that means that we can really get aggressive, get off that line, and enhance the pressure that the opposition are feeling. So we do love and find a lot of safety and comfort off an edge ruck to really set ourselves up to be as aggressive as possible.
Also, we have some of the fastest wings in the world, and so we will let them take that space and do their thing, and you know, really strong counter rucking. And so we would love for them to have that opportunity out wide, and we'll support them on the next phase if they can't get it the first phase. And
just jumping into that, kind of, you just spoken about the speed and the ability to cover or to, you know, attack per se from a defensive mindset, but also just the speed of recovery in many ways. I put shape down here. What does that mean, Nana? What does shape mean to us as a team?
I believe shape means like once we're all connected. So like Alev says, we do have some of the fastest wingers. It's not so much of, oh, let's just force the tackle to go. We just want our winger to always make those tackles, but we're being connected and being able to come up as a whole in a shape to be able to close off the back door too, so they don't have that option of coming back, and we give them less space outside for our winger to make those tackles. Yeah, we talk a lot about like a windshield wiper, and that great curve coming in and closing that backside.
And but regards to when you hear the shape as a terminology, what does that often relate to in the game sense?
Connecting to each other.
Yeah, stay connected.
So cool, 100%. But in the sense of that terminology, generally when we hear it, it's when we're feeling stressed in some way, or an individual is feeling stressed in some way. So shapes are kind of like a protection or an emergency call of, hey, shape. Often it'll come from a sweeper or the person that's feeling really under pressure. And really, it's something that it's just a call that we have to get ourselves back into comfort as quickly as possible so that we can get back on that front foot. So almost like a checkpoint rather than continually making sure that we are connected, as Nana shared.
Yeah, it's more of a mindset. I mean, if you're saying shape, you're like, basically we're at the bend, don't break scenario, you know? And so we are now bending. Let's stay connected. It's a mindset. Like no one needs to leave the line at this point, go crazy. Like we'll connect, we'll shape, we'll get set, we'll go.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily always mean the same thing. When we call shape, you would then look at the picture that's in front of you and figure that out. So it would either be the edge would either stay in place and wait for us to connect from the inside, or would start dropping off at that point. But when you say shape, it is a call of help.
Yeah. So I mean, as you can see here, our first principle is connect, and if we feel vulnerable or we feel stressed or that connection's looking wobbly, etc., then it's a urgency / reminder to make sure that we are solid as a unit, as Alev and Nana have shared. Just some of the KPIs that we look at before we jump into some video clips around this, just to kind of show with regards to that two-phase sequence and the so-called box setups or our standard approach. We're constantly trying to limit the opposition to a minimum of 10 points. A maximum of 10 points, sorry. Trying to force 5 turnovers in every match. We know that if we're doing this, then we're generally guaranteed to get at least 9 or 10 opportunities with ball in hand to obviously score. And then the 80% tackle rate, so 4 out of 5 tackles, and I don't know why you're laughing, Leah.
I just, just for the moon.
Hey?
Yeah, we're getting there.
And this is the thing, is like if you guys want to look back at 2 of our tournaments, you look back at Brits and Langford, from a defensive standpoint, both of those tournaments we averaged under 10 points a game. There's been times when we were this season, when we were in Glendale against the Aussies, our tackle execution from a team was about 81%. But the thing is, different individuals at times will have 92% or 85%. We've even had players 10 out of 10 tackles, etc. But it's just, but in the sense of from an individual standpoint, there'll be a range, etc. But then as a complete team, obviously, we know if we're hitting around these target points, then we're going to be very, very hard to beat. And then that shape call, especially off transition, when we've got the ball, we've got to transition back into defence. Can we protect ourselves for that first 20 seconds? Because we know if we do that, then that's 2 phases. And very few teams will go 3 phases consistently without giving decent turnover opportunities. So I mean, these are the optimal for us. We know, yes, of course, 0 points would be great, but in the sense of if we're achieving this, then we're winning the majority of our games. And even if we're achieving 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4 of these specific aspects, then we'll be pretty close to where we need to be. Is that fair to say, ladies?
Yeah, was there some grace period on some penalties?
Well, we'll jump into that when we get back, because there's some quite cool stats coming up in that. Hey, look, got a little bit of which is a good thing, and I think Nana and Alev, you guys will love more, because you'll probably get a little bit more of a encouragement to make good decisions in breakdowns. But it is interesting when you look at the men's game and also the top 4 teams over the last 2 years from the women's side, who gives away the most penalties, but also how does that relate to
getting the ball back,
actually winning the tournaments, And we might be surprised there, but we'll leave that for pre-season.
Okay.
Just jumping onto the other side of the ball, look, our ultimately how we play this game is, yes, we've got our strike plays and we're always trying to score as quickly as possible. But then if we don't score off first phase, etc., or second phase, then we've got a standard framework that allows us to fill the pitch and really spread the opposition out as much as possible. And just recently, we've implemented a nice little, and we've seen it come to life around no recovery. And it's not just transition, but it does have a heavier influence on transition play. When we've made a turnover, how quickly can we recognise an opportunity and take that space as quickly as possible so that the opposition can't recover. And I think, that doesn't just relate to transition, as I said, but we did start to implement it in that area, but we've really saw it come to life in this last 3-4 weeks of training when we have been together, which has been pretty powerful and pretty cool. Alev, in the sense of, I'd love for you to share a little bit more around the attacking space. One of the themes that we've been talking a lot about is team space versus individual space. Would you mind sharing a bit more?
Absolutely. I think in rugby, there's so many opportunities for the right play, but also some, there's probably 100 different options off of one play. And so deciding whether or not, individually you're taking that space or you're taking space to set up someone else for another better space. That's the $1 million question. So with how athletic our team is, a lot of people can go through gaps just individually and athletically. And so how can you encourage them to continue like empowering them to go through those gaps when they see it, but also using them to set up that gap to be a threat, to run to score and be a threat as your first step, and then looking to set up the best space and then give that pass when it's ready. So I'm not sure if that's what you wanted, but
that's cool. No, that's really good, Alev. And as Alev shared, often, especially on a sevens pitch, there's multiple players that could attack and beat their player or get over the gain line. I guess the big thing is as you see our last principle, or our third principle being support, is it's when we're taking on the contact line or the gain line, we have to recognise that we're creating a competition point, and we want to make sure that we're in the most dominant position as possible. And because we do have threats right across the park and the framework that we play, or the different strategies that we employ, our framework set up to allow us to maximise and exploit the best space for the team. And then that also makes it so much easier for the support to play their roles, and for us to maintain or retain the ball, etc., and ultimately score. Nana, with regards to run the score, a lot of people might be sitting here going, well, what does that even mean? What's your thoughts? Or can you share?
It's not simple, but it's basically what it says, run the score. Like when you have ball in hand, don't hesitate, but more so it connects to the attacking space, because you want to make sure. So obviously we always look to attack the best space, not just a little space, but when you run the score, you're running hard, running to score, but also keeping in mind that the next phase could potentially be the next where you would actually score. So not thinking of just that phase, but the next phase as well.
Yeah, like running really hard and making a decision so your teammates know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So you're not. So yes, you're trying to score, but also you'll know when you're forcing it.
So I think this is cool, and there's a lot of little nuggets coming out of what they're saying, and it is that if we're going to be dominant, if we're going to be in charge and control, then we want to make sure that we are the ones that are forcing the situation to occur. So running the score, if we can score straight away, then that's brilliant. And the better we are at identifying the best space, the quicker that's going to happen. But having that run to score mentality as well is also going to ensure that at a contact point, if we don't line break, if we don't score, that decisiveness is going to make it a lot easier for the support players around you or around them to play the role that they need to play, and ensure that we're getting more often than not on the front foot and pushing the defence back and back and back. If you look at the KPIs that we look at and they're aligned to some themed or some storytelling that we do, but ultimately we're looking for, if we're scoring 4+ tries a game, and our we actually want to tackle, and I'm just being cheeky, but in the sense of if we're scoring 4+ tries a game, and then very few games are you finding that opposition are scoring more than you, if your defensive system is sound, of course. And why is 4 tries in 14 minutes or 4 tries in 7 minutes of actual playing time a lot, considering generally you only have half of that ball? Well, to put it in perspective, as I shared earlier, generally we have 8 to 10 opportunities in each game, whether it's meaning in the sense of we've received the kickoff, we've taken the ball, it's our line out, it's our tap penalty. There's normally 8 to 10 as a minimal opportunities. So if we're taking 2 out of every 3, well, we only need 6, and then we're getting our 4 tries, and I think when we look at the conversion rate of being 2 out of 3 or 66%, it starts to create a momentum picture. And of course, if we really want to be taking control and in charge and not allowing it to be give or take or allowing, we want to be in charge. We don't want to allow the opposition to have any opportunity here. And especially if you think about this, if we're taking 3 or 4 out of our first 5 opportunities that we get, then of course how demoralised is the opposition going to be, and then the potential for the floodgates to open up and for us to be able to really cut the throat. And then that aligns into ball retention. Can we hold on to the ball for long periods of time without giving easy turnovers, etc. And so yes, we could probably look at 10 or 11 different KPIs from an attack standpoint and from a defensive standpoint. But if we look at the ones that have a high influence on the actual outcome of games, the conversion rate, you look at the defensive side, you look at the points, but also from a turnover standpoint and tackle execution. And then for us, where we are pretty special and the best in the world currently is from our how we get the ball back from a restart standpoint. And I think it's a nice little picture here of Alev setting us up here, giving us the opportunity. But ultimately, it's again, the more we have the ball, the less defending we have to do, the less energy we need to expend to do what the majority of players, apart from Nana, love doing most. So no, I'm just being cheeky. She loves attacking too, but she doesn't mind a big hit here and there as well.
Doesn't mind. I think she lives for it.
So hopefully that kind of sets it up. We're going to look through with the last 10 minutes here. We're just going to look through 5 or 6 clips of rugby, and hopefully you'll be able to tie in hopefully we'll be able to tie in the principles of play, but also see some of the strategies and work at work. And again, don't hesitate to send through any questions that you have as we go through this. So we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. All right. And the first clip here you're going to see is against Russia. And I just want you to look at how connected our defensive line is. Think about the 2-phase sequence in the sense of where's our first opportunity. If we don't get it from the first opportunity, how are we setting ourselves up to really maximise off that next breakdown?
Can you see, Nana?
No, it's like frozen.
It's like frozen on your screen, Brownie.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Pretty artistic, actually.
Yeah.
Is it frozen still? Okay.
Let's see.
Sorry, Jane.
You're good.
This time again, eh? What's that?
I said, Nana, what you snacking on?
Nothing.
All right, can you see it now? Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
better.
let's have a look, team.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Is it working?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so let's just have a look at our defensive line here. Really key with regards to, are we connected? Are we feeling safe? In the sense of, are we feeling like really like we've got support either side of us, giving ourselves the best opportunity here to really force this first turnover.
Yep. Connection off each other. Great launch. Force the pass out wide. Great tackle by Kershey.
And then we're just looking, so if we look at here from a breakdown standpoint, first responsibility is this is where you'll see the winger that's popped up. Their responsibility here is to take care of the 9 to ensure that the rest of these players here, I'm just going to shift this because this is annoying. Yep. Everyone else here can forget about this breakdown, get themselves aligned, connected and aligned.
Yep.
To ultimately put as much pressure on these two here as possible.
And that's what we talk about the box situation. Tackler makes the tackle. You have a second supporting player as the hunter goes to box, takes care of that scrum half, and then releases that first pass pressure.
And as you see here, the importance of staying in the game and working hard just to cover the inside of the person on the ball, the defender. We call that guardian angel. But what you'll notice here is quite often, especially if we get a really aggressive go-get launch here, then as she looks out there, she just sees this pressure coming.
Yeah.
And so this is all part of our so-called two-phase sequence. Could we get them on the first phase? No, we had good connection, but the Russians just got us on the outside. They took that, 15, 20 meters. But ultimately, off the sideline, we set ourselves up to be able to create a lot of pressure here. And this is the outcome that we get from the scenario.
If you go back to, we talk about connection is not being man on man, but connecting off of each other and seeing our man in our peripheral. So we are like 6 to 8 meters apart, not spread too far where we've created big gaps.
Regardless of how your attacking line is, how spaced they are.
Sorry, Anna?
This person is irrelevant right now.
What's that, Anna? Sorry?
I said, like Alev saying, we're connected to each other, not off our attacking line, because that last person on the attacking line is irrelevant to us right now because the ball's, you want to defend the first attacking.
100%. A brilliant point. And when we look at it here, you can see this person way over in the corner. Well, they've got those 4 passes to even get it to her. So we don't have to worry about that. Yes, this last person's aware of that, but it's all about trying to create as much pressure here. So then, we don't have to, if we do our job early, then that's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, and ideally,
okay.
I was going to say, keep going, sorry.
Based off this picture here, you'll see we're probably not the happiest with our connection right now. There's a little bit of watching and waiting to see what happens.
A little laziness on that get up.
And laziness on the get up, which means we've only got one person. Now we're right over on the sideline, which protects us and is another defender for us in many ways. But in the sense of, if you see this picture here where you've got the sweeper, which we play a 6 and 1, so that our sweeper can create us a lot of comfort where we have vulnerability. So in this scenario here, there's no reason for this defender not to be pretty close to where this player is here, which is Alona Ma. And then imagine then how much
launch we can
a little bit wider, and would be an absolute perfect scenario. Because of what these two do out here, it creates a little bit of forgiveness for this person, etc. And we get this hesitation, and we create this turnover. But imagine if this person here was a good alignment coming straight up the pitch. As this person steps backwards, she's probably making that tackle, and then this person's coming into hunt, and this person's still in front of him. So that puts us in a really, really strong position, and that's why we want to get our so-called connection ideally set up, so that we're not allowing potentially another ruck here where we don't get hold of it, that we have to play. We want to force that turnover as quickly as possible. Here's a little bit more of an example where we lost our connection a little bit. And why I say this is, as we come out, so you can see that these guys now kind of are getting into a 3-on-2 scenario. And she's like, oh, what? We don't need to go real hard here. I'm going to go a bit more into a shape scenario. Is that like a safety kind of protection mindset a little bit here, Lev? Is that fair to say, just for a split second?
Yep, absolutely. A little on an island. There we go.
100%. But then once we quickly get back into a man-on-man situation, we force the contact point. Again, a little bit slow, a little bit later in the breakdown.
Get out.
Because you see, we've got this protection here. We've got 2 around here. All right. So we're going to trust that these people are doing their jobs. But again, the pressure that's been created out here has created hesitation and gives us that opportunity. Just missed it, but no worries. Lovely. But you can see, so that's the 2-phase sequence. Edge to middle. Did we get it? No, we didn't. Now we've just ended up with a second ruck in the middle of the pitch. Okay. Which means less likely to be able to be as aggressive as possible. But because of the poor work off the ball by Russia, ultimately they got players out of the game and we've got numbers up, so it makes no difference. What you'll find against better teams is that all 7 of their players here would have been in the game, and the more rucks that we have back to back in the middle of the pitch, the quicker they get in the front foot and we start to feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then here's a nice little one of a Lev, just a little bit showing her at her best. Nice little soft touch here. But remembering, you do your job early, you get your alignment right, you come up as a line, quite often you don't have to even make the tackle because the pressure forces the attack into making faster decisions, and the error often comes by itself.
Also, I'm really blessed that Kershey scored, because I don't think I would have gotten there for that tackle.
All right. Sorry, this is stop working.
Are you going into attack, Brownie?
Yeah, we're going to jump into attack now.
Before we go into attack, there's a question. It's around defense, so if you want to answer it.
Yeah, what is it?
Question is from Mike Giebel. Sorry if I said your name wrong. Is there ever a time on restarts when you would choose not to contest and instead get your defense set? If a kick doesn't go where it was meant, or if they have a very strong receiver matchup?
I mean, for us, I mean, ladies, I mean, we're the #1 restart team in the world, both sides of the ball. So it's for us, we want to compete as much as possible, and it's on our kickers to get the ball, put the ball in a spot that we can compete for. Yeah, is there times in certain conditions, like whether it's wet or humid, and we decide to kick long and force them into the back corner and make them try and score from 100 out or 80 out? Yeah, there is. But the majority of the time, we are definitely looking to try and get the ball back as quickly as possible. And the first opportunity we have is off the kickoff. If you look at a team like the South African men, previously they would quite often not compete. They would kick long and they'd use the defence to force the turnovers and then try and score off turnover plays.
Australia also does that as well.
100%. And what you're seeing now is changing is that teams are recognising that this is a great opportunity to get the ball back immediately. And if you've got a 30% chance to get it back, 30 or 40% chance based off statistics, etc. And if you've got 2 or 3 jumpers on the pitch, then of course why are we throwing that one away and waiting for the next opportunity when we could be just attacking it straight away?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have calls if the kick goes long to make sure that we've practiced our setup and our movement, and that's all kind of in our strike plays to make sure that we do have safeties in place in case that does happen where it's overkicked or it's too short. So. Yeah,
definitely.
We also have some of the best restarts and people who contest for the ball. So yeah, I would say we're definitely contesting.
We're going to try to get up there. Yeah, absolutely.
And if lost, we're close enough to go straight into defense.
Yes.
And our system, how we set it up in a way is that we've always got protection with a safety in behind and our 45s to ensure that if we have that protection there with our sweepers, none is applying to. So. And then just these last couple of clips, I just want you to really focus on the filling the pitch point. meaning in the sense of how we try to spread the defence of the opposition as quickly as possible, because it does create the more space that you have to so-called perceive yourself to cover, the more indecisions likely to happen, the more isolation, as Alev shared, being on an island, is more likely to happen. So let's just have a look at a few clips if we finish up here, and hopefully it'll tie everything together for you. So whether we're attacking out wide or whatever channel we're looking to attack, here the centre's having a real good go based off what that winger did, gave a nice little read there. Okay. How quick's our support? Where's our next opportunity? It's lovely big open spaces to attack. Space changes, beautiful play off each other. You know, that's what we want 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Here we go on the next one. Now, looking at this picture here, it's like, okay, where's the best space? Well, the best space is out here, but if she just passes this ball, this space quickly, the picture changes quickly. And so what's really pleasant to see here is that how each individual plays their role. And the role here for the first receiver, which is Alev at this time, is just to create a little bit more hesitancy in them by attacking initially. Holds them tight, creates the opportunity for our centre. Probably could do a little bit more work on the ground, but we won't go there. Good work off the ball. Again, where's the best space to attack? And this is a challenge because we've just spoken about Alev doing everything that she needed to do to put Kirsch away into that space. If we look at this example, the initial movements and work from the second receiver here is brilliant. But does she do a little bit too much when potentially she'd already done enough to really set the outside the way?
Yeah. You can even see the mismatch right now if you pause it. Brownie, like, look how many people are behind that ball. You know that there's a player open. So
all the 7 on the screen. Now, yes, these two need to get themselves into space, into the game a little bit more effectively.
A little flatter.
But she's already done enough. But just those extra couple of steps brings this defence over. And ultimately, we lose an opportunity to score right here, but run to score, brilliant. Great support play on the clean, and we still get there. Obviously, the ideal is we limit how many competition points that they have and how much effort we have to use. But again, run to score mentality, back ourselves nice and decisive. What I love here is just from a fill the pitch mentality. We talk about having speed of 4s or playing in 4s, all right? Because we want our first receivers to be set up as quick as possible. All right, great adaptation from Abby there. That little bit of movement creates the hesitation in this defender, allows us to get him behind the gain line. Beautiful play. And then again here, just looking for best space. Can we get on the front foot, running to score? We're in charge. Worked around the corner to create a nice little get ourselves into space. Great support play. Decisive in the decision. Was there space there? Yeah, there's space there. There's 10 metres, one-on-one, big versus small. Get ourselves over that game line again. Great support from Naya. Okay, where's the best space for the team? People doing their roles. Absolutely beautiful play. Stressing the Canadian, you know, we're really pulling them right across the pitch. Okay, giving ourselves opportunities. One pass. How many players are inside this pass? Look, there's 4 of them. Because we've spread them, we've used the full width for the pitch. Because we're running the score and getting them behind the gain line, it puts us in such a good spot. And then ultimately, they've just defended 3 phases. They're a little bit stressed. We go, we score our try. Nice and easy. So hopefully that summarised gives a little bit of good insight into what we try to do both sides of the ball. Ultimately, we're trying to get the ball back so that we can score tries, yeah? Is there any more questions coming through, etc.? I really hope that those last few clips kind of tie in a little bit of our our strategic play and how we look at it. Awesome. All right, team. Well, yeah, ladies, thank you very much for your time. Aaliyah, it looks like you need to go surfing.
What makes you say that?
Yeah, just please don't hesitate to reach out, any questions, etc. that you guys have, and whether it's social media or whether it's via the USA Rugby website. So thank you for taking the time for us to be able to share some of what we do with you.
Thanks, Brownie.
Thanks, Brownie.
Yes, team. Bye.